Marcin, so can you introduce yourself to the group?
Okay, hello, welcome. I'm from Gdańsk, Poland. What's about me and why I'm talking to you here today? I have around 15 years of experience in IT, mostly 7 years as software developer, software engineer, from junior to architect, working on data aggregation systems and distributed computing. Including different type of databases, different type of infrastructure, different type of computing. Later on, I moved into DevOps, then full infrastructure things, cloud. I have working for various international companies like Intel, Nokia, on modernization projects. Then we introducing new systems, rebuilding old one to meet new requirements. From few years, I have been consultant, working with different companies, mostly in banking, telecommunication sectors, on helping them how to migrate from old systems into modern without drastic changes. I have been also entrepreneur, then as the civil and sponsor, and I have co-owner of Sphera Technologies, and mostly that's all about me.
Great, Marcin. So you worked with these big systems and banks. I imagine they have a lot of legacy systems. So can you tell us, firstly, what is a legacy system? How do you define that?
Yeah, I will say minimum 1,000 for each bank, and this number is minimum. What is defining legacy system? I have do some small poll on LinkedIn what people think about what is legacy system. Then they believe that legacy is next day after something is written. I unfortunately need to disagree with this opinion and look from more business perspective, from more operational perspective. From my side, legacy system, and from business side, legacy system is when software stop supporting our business needs. Then as long as it's serving what we have in business, it's okay. And as long as it's ready to change together with this business, even system is not heavy maintained or not heavy changed, as long as it's work, it's okay from my perspective. But here is a short line how to recognize when systems start being legacy, and I will tell you that most of companies recognize this in moment when systems start blocking the business growth, and they see that we need to change it, we need to add some feature, and this is pretty impossible because we have this legacy and we don't have documentation, we don't have developers that will take on it, and it starts blocking us. Then this is the moment when companies recognize this moment.
I love that. I like this definition. So the system stops company from growing its business. The technology becomes a kind of an element that slows down the growth of the business. So can you tell us a bit more? So why does it happen? Why does it happen with some systems and not with others?
First thing of all, it's documentation, I will say. Developers don't like to write documentation. Agile manifesto give us systems without architecture, without documentation, without anything in text that will describe how the system works. Then this is one of aspect. Second one, I will say, it's that they're not continuously looking if this system is okay or not. It's mostly about observability and things like that. Then we don't observe maturing of our code. We don't observe what happened how we use it, then we don't know that it stops serving our business. Also in older time, a lot of business is out of the systems. Then it's easier to create manual processes, and it evolves this way, and the system stop evolving together with business.
Okay, got it. So the system stops evolving together with business. So can you tell us a bit about what kind of systems we're talking about? So what can be a legacy systems before we go into the solutions? What kind of systems we are talking about?
Okay, I will say that mostly recognizes is software, software that companies write, but this is not true. Legacy system can be, database, can be infrastructure you are on, can be your message queue, actually everything, including paper process that describe how the software is built can be legacy. And some developers joke that they don't write documentation because it's being legacy before code being legacy, but but you need to synchronize it. Then I will say every system that is parts of our company software.
Got it. All right. So when I talked to you, you had this really interesting specific strategy to deal with legacy systems. So can you now tell us a bit more about that?
Okay. What are strategies? I will say that for some things, we got a lot of help. Maybe it's not definitely what we need, but for example, for mainframes, IBM give us lift and shift tools that can help us move our COBOL systems even to Kubernetes, to cloud, and it's working somehow. Then we can modernize parts of them. For other strategies, of course, to abandon and write from the ground, and sometimes it's only one strategy we can choose. Most interesting part of software, I will say, from perspective of legacy is 90s, early 20s, then millennium age, when we start building monoliths with Agile Manifesto, then it evolves evolutionary. And it creates worst nightmares, I will say, in software. Strategy for deal with that, from my perspective, best is going small steps, using some modern architecture patterns like cell-based architecture that can give you small view of features you want, and you can migrate these features separately into new systems and somehow break it down into smaller chunks that are modernizing.
God, let me just stop you here and just recap it, because you said a lot of very important things. So I heard three strategies there. So the first one was taking the existing system and just moving it, for example, to the cloud. If the cloud provider provides it, just keeping it in a sense, but just modernizing maybe something underneath. The second one I heard was completely abandon it and build something from scratch. And the third one was to gradually replace it with something else using cell-based strategy. Did I get it right? Was it the right characterization here?
Okay, cell-based architecture is introduced a few years ago by VSOW, company known from microservice solutions, and cell-based architecture is something built on top of microservices. When we split our functionality into chunks that have some concrete role, and this role is served by cell. Then the strategy for all software works that you put your software into one cell, and you move some new features into new cell as new service, and make connectors to the old one. That old one is still ready to serve its functionality, but you build new. And previous strategies, as I said about lift and shift, for example, make us easier to do that, because you have, for example, old system together with new one in cloud or on Kubernetes, then it's pretty important. And from this side, you can grow this new cells to build these systems.
Got it. Can you explain again lift and shift? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, lift and shift is this model when you get your old software and put it in another place. Then more modern infrastructure, more modern database,
right?
But still same software.
The first kind of the first strategy you described there, like moving something to the cloud, a COBOL-based software to the cloud or something like this. Yeah. Okay, got it. So I have a few questions from the audience. I think I could already ask it right away, because I think that there's a very interesting observation from Dennis. So Dennis writes that supporting documentation is a very painful task. So how do you address this? You mentioned the documentation being a very important part of avoiding a system becoming legacy, avoiding basically making a system obsolete and difficult to maintain. So how do you recognize, how do you resolve that problem? How do you deal with documentation, given that it's a painful task to maintain it and support it?
Okay, first of all, you need, sir. Okay, first of all, you need to deal with it, and even you need to employ someone to write this documentation. You need to do that. Of course, as time goes, we start having tools that help us, like Swagger UI to document our APIs. Infrastructure as a code can generate you some diagrams, say you what will be changed, etc. for different type of software, even for databases right now. Then using this tool, you can start writing. We have from a long time systems that generate documentation from code, and having it together also will help. From my perspective, good idea is to define contracts that our system does for other. Then even you don't have documentation of everything. Using these contracts, you can take on later and draw data flow and even flow within whole system from small parts, from small chunks like microservices. And
got it. All right. Let me then go back to cell-based architecture, because when we spoke previously, you said something that was quite illuminating to me about dealing with legacy systems that other systems depend on. So we have a system, maybe it's a database, and there are some other systems that read from the database. And you mentioned something about maintaining the contract, but re-implementing the system. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, this is interesting case I have with my client. They want to rewrite one of systems, and they say, oh, code base is small, like 20K lines of code. When we start examining it, it looks like there is 75K of line of codes in database. That really state where system is. And what is problematic when we start rewriting it, we've seen that there is some other systems that get data directly from our database. Then to maintain it, we need to talk continuously with this database, even it's not needed in new system, to put their data and make this old system synchronize it. As long as they will not start using our new API, then our contracts. And for that, in cell-based architecture, you have something like legacy connectors. That this is part that in the ideal world will be removed from your system, but as long as you need to maintain connectivity with old ones, you need to maintain these connectors that will fluidify with data, your database, your message queue, or something other that connects with others legacy parts.
Got it. Yeah, I really like this, and it reminded me of the CISC versus RISC CPUs, modern x86 CPUs. They on the outside, they look like CISC architecture, but really the CISC architecture has gone out of date. So inside, actually, it's a RISC processor, and then there is some unit that translates a RISC to CISC so that all the software written for the CPU still runs. So it's a kind of similar situation where that unit that translates those instructions is like the legacy connector you're talking about, right? Did I get it right?
Right, definitely, like Windows subsystem for Linux.
Yeah, exactly. So people do use it, and indeed, this is definitely a way of dealing with legacy systems that other systems depend on. You just retain the contract, retain the interface, whatever it is, just re-implement it without having to re-implement all those systems that depend on it. I really like that. I'm going to change to gallery view now, and I'm going to invite everybody to contribute. So let me do that. I see a question from Magdi. We kind of already covered that with the first question. Magdi is asking what makes a software into a legacy system. We sort of, when we talked about the definition, we talked about, is there something you have to add there, Marcin?
What more? Let me think. I would think that company culture can do that, and this is interesting part, and business culture even, because more often systems are not updated, there is no time to make documentation and things like that, because there is no budget for that. Features are implemented in like business budget, then for implementing new feature there is no budget for maintaining software itself, and this is big part that make systems legacy, even not budget for people to learn new technologies, and how these people will update your systems if they haven't time to learn new things. Then this is something not related with technology, but take really important part in making legacy.
Got it. I like that as well. That's very interesting. Yes, giving time to learn new things, for example, that's a very important one. We have a question, actually, a comment from David Eichner about client-server-based software. Is there any specific advice you have on that, Marcin?
Oh, okay. This is really interesting because update depends on your client, not on your side directly. I have working, for example, for one of TVs, and we have pretty 30-something different clients for our software. And then for sure, API versioning is something that will easify for you updating clients, because you can still serve old ones and give new features to new ones. Then this is one of way. Also all of this software markets like Google, etc., help you with that, because they somehow can help you require from users to update to make possible to use this application. And this is one of things. But there is no good way. You can say in some moment for your users, sorry, this version is not supported, and please update to continue using it. This is a last thing you can do in such systems.
Got it. We have a question from Peter. From a different perspective, what is the risk to the organization for maintaining an obsolete system? From a management point of view, this may be different than from a purely technical perspective.
What is risk of maintaining
risk to the organization?
Yeah, COVID is good example. What is risk of maintaining old technology, because it shows that COBOL support is pretty small. There is no people are retiring, people are old, and there is no specialist, and there is risk that no one will be able to maintain your systems. I believe this is biggest risk. There is no really technical risk. If you have people that want to do that and want to maintain it, there is no problem to do that. But it's not easy to put young people to maintain 30 years system that are bad design, that have bad design, and learning curve is pretty huge. This is, for example, case of Kubernetes. Kubernetes is pretty simple, or even clouds are even simpler, and you can do everything with infrastructure in just few clicks. Comparing it with infrastructure from 20 years ago, you need weeks to set up something. Then new people that will come to help you will don't want to do that. Then your risk is that you will lose people that want to maintain it.
Got it. That's an interesting one. Yeah, losing the people because they don't want to work on a legacy system. That actually makes a lot of sense. So another question from Laura. What are some strategies for recovering or getting something released when you start a complete rewrite and you realize that you have too much work and the release date is too far out for business needs? For example, rewrite has been going on for 3 years with no end in sight.
Okay, then first of all, and this is what make business scared about such initiative, is that it will be giant change that will put company around, and it will take 3-5 years, and no one know what will happen. Then my approach is always take small steps, break even smallest possible features into new services, and do it continuously. Then you have just risk of taking this one feature from this system, then it lower your risk.
Got it. Yeah, actually, David is responding similarly here. Rather than a complete rewrite, consider perhaps cloud ERP, like a Qmatic ERP that is written in .NET, allows you to view the source code and write customizations in C#, either with Qmatic or within Visual Studio. Yeah, I think the question is also, I would think, Laura, if you wish, you could actually turn your mic, because my question to you, in a sense, is why is it a complete rewrite? Why couldn't you or your company perhaps do it step by step? Replace individual features, perhaps re-implement the same interface so that other systems don't have to be changed.
I will break you for a moment. Sometimes only way is to leave old system, and this is in moment when, for example, from current business perspective, you need only 5-10% of features that old system have. Then this is moment when you should rewrite it from the ground, because possibly there is no way to leave this 90% that is not used.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Well, in our case, it's an enormous system, and it contains probably over 100 subsystems, and the main application is being rewritten, but it was originally written in the 1990s, and so they're trying to move it to SaaS and cloud-based and that kind of infrastructure. So they've already done a facelift and moved parts of it from MFC to C#. But yeah, it's just a very enormous project with a lot of complexities. So they've already started this. I don't think they're going to back out and then try to figure out how to do pieces now. It's already been going on for 3 years.
Is that code already, the code that has been written, is it in production already, or is all that code? No. Okay.
No, nothing's in production. Right.
Got it. Yeah. I totally understand the situation and the somewhat impatience, I suppose, that some of the management has. Well, do you have any advice, Marcin?
Yeah, I will say that the best I will propose is to stay in this moment and think what is MVP product they can do without all feature previous system have, to establish a stable base for new one, because going deep with all of these subsystems can make that final system will be worse than previous one. Then I will say you need to consider what is MVP based, when you can stop, stabilize it, and then move for the rest of features.
I think the two of you need to talk after the meetup.
Yeah, this is good idea.
Yeah. All right. I actually would like to ask another question, which is, what about the challenges of implementing that cell-based strategy? Where are the pitfalls and the traps?
Okay. First of all, from my perspective, and not all companies recognize that architecture is still needed in agile time. Then, as I said, many companies leave architecture and say we will go and see what will happen. Then not all right now recognize that is bad way. Then they need to do that, and they need to start trying to do some kind of audit session that will show you what is current architecture, what is current state, and to make design of what you want to do. This is one of challenges because it takes time, and it's a little bit not intuitive from agile perspective that we'll spend right now, I don't know, 2 weeks, 1 month to recognize what we really have. But this is pretty crucial. Big culture change. This is other challenge, like building mindset of updating things, or of maintaining things, of versioning things. It's something problematic for developers, as I see in such projects, that they need to think about that. And the last challenge is to do it with care. Then like Laura say, it can go wrong way, and we can try to rewrite everything, and it will take years and will not guarantee you what will happen. Then you need to start thinking small, and this will give you careful for change. Then this is challenge to do that, and to remember about that, to be some kind observe what happened with system, how it changed, if it's still updated with current requirements and things like that, because even you write just small part, and next one, then previous small part can need update, even you don't rewrite whole system. Yeah, then you need to think about it continuously, and this is big challenge, mostly organizational challenge, because you will need to spend more time looking on what happened.
Got it. Yeah, let me ask you a little bit more about it, because you mentioned that the first thing you mentioned, the architecture, creating an architecture, maintaining an architecture in the world of agile and changing requirements. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because this is also a question on how to avoid a system becoming a legacy. How do you maintain a coherent architecture in a world of changing business requirements?
Okay, first of all, I will say that your company need to build some kind of standards, architecture standards, like for example Spotify does. It's named Golden Paths. Then standards, how you are creating applications, how you describe your API, how you register your API to some API catalog that everyone know, and that there is your API, how to version these applications, and so on. Then this is one of things. What more? If you can repeat question, then it will.
So the question is about the architecture. How do you maintain a coherent architecture in changing environment, changing requirements?
Then I will say it's good to create something like architecture board for your company, that group, a group that is changing, and group that decides how these systems are written. it can. I will say I say that it's changing because if you will leave them same people for years, then maybe no much will change. Then you need to decide which people, it can be moving role in team, which people will represent this team in this gremium, but this gremium need to define standards, need to talk about architecture and take these standards. It will remove from your company, for example, things like, okay, we have using this, but no one know that we are using it. Then deciding, for example, an example, we decide to get this database, some document database, for example, and some other team is thinking, okay, what database we should consider, and they don't know that this team is using it. Then it make that every system have different database. If we will have that gremium, we will know that these guys are changing this system, then this database, then we will test if this database will be able to serve also our problems.
Happens in large companies, a typical thing.
Then it will do. Yeah, large companies have like 10, 20 standards, and the standards do the same, but no one knows that do the same, then they create new ones.
Got it. We have another question from Marty. Do you recommend Uncle Bob's clean code to tackle legacy code before it starts to pile up? Magdi, I'm not sure if I understand the question. What do you mean by Uncle Bob's clean code? Maybe there's something I didn't know about. Maybe you could elaborate on that and explain to everyone what that is.
Yeah, there are some standards called clean code that Uncle Bob just published some books about it. There is a clean code book. There is clean architecture, clean agile. If you search, yeah, it is really popular nowadays among developers trying to write clean code. I mean, turning legacy code into a software that is more maintainable and more easy to for evolution, I mean.
Okay, makes a lot of sense and sounds very interesting. Marcin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, I was previously Python developer, and there is also Zen of Python and one way to do it right. And then I will say that rules like written in clean code or any other book that show you design patterns, show you how to avoid code smells and things like that is good, but you know, respectively to what you do. And then sometime it doesn't have sense to introduce big system to fix small problem. But yes, I will say that I have observing Uncle Bob on Twitter, and many of his recommendations are valid and are useful.
Okay, I can see that Uncle Bob actually sparked a lot of discussion. I can see Jimmy and Deepak responding. Jimmy, you wrote, I think first, Uncle Bob has a lot of weak points. See discussions on Reddit Hacker News. Would you like to share some of these thoughts, perhaps what those weak points are, what are the strong points? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's things like don't use switch statements or some other points he mentioned, but the amount of good points, there's a few good points, but there's also a bunch of points that are not really like enterprise level considerations that you would take. I would recommend like the Google book. There's a recent one, Google Engineering Lessons. I think those are a little bit better.
Okay, got it. You just posted a link from us on software engineering Google Lessons programming. I'll check it out as well. It sounds interesting.
I will say that it's good to think what is context of his recommendation, because they are very generous, and from one perspective, using switches or too many ifs seem like you don't understand how your code work. You cannot build a proper object-oriented structure, because Uncle Bob is mostly taking about object-oriented systems. then you should think what is context he think about this, because it's not universal. You can say that this is I have that when I have writing Python, I have object-oriented code and things like that. Then I learn functional programming and I try to implement everything with functional programming in Python. And then it doesn't work in all cases, but in some it improves my code quality. Then you need to think about context. Every suggestion is good, but in some variables about context.
Got it. Deepak, what are your comments?
I have a question for Marcin here. How do you convince, as an architect or a lead, how do you convince to your business management and business folks that, okay, this system needs to be replaced? Because it takes lots of time to maintain. But business, they look for the profit, they look for the dollar amount. How do you convince them?
Okay, this is interesting question, because sometimes it's not possible to do that, but most often, as I said, they recognize that we need to deal with the systems when they start blocking their business. And I have, as developer years ago, multiple situations when business comes and say, we need to implement that feature in 2 weeks. And I say, guys, it's 3 months of work in this system. And they start recognizing, okay, we need to take care of it. And the both sides need to look for compromise. Then I have found for them how to do it in one month. Then they find budget for changing a little, and using small steps you can evolve. I will never consider maintaining rewriting these systems as a separate project, because it will be never accepted.
Got it. I like this strategy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Deepak. I just wanted to go back to this discussion on Uncle Bob. Marty wrote, he taught his strategies to 2 companies and had a really great impression on maintainability. So definitely opinions differ, it looks like, on Uncle Bob's. I'm definitely going to check it out as well. All right, so I have another question to you, and this may be some of the closing questions, because I still would like to do the breakout room session. What about some trends or changes in the industry? Have you noticed anything? Has something recently changed, or is something about to change that affects how we work with legacy systems?
Okay, then I will say about 2 things. One is availability of technology. You have clouds, you have Kubernetes, you have this lift and shift tools, you have free databases in cloud, you can test them, you have a lot of learning materials. Then availability is big thing that make it easy to take on it. And second thing that is not intuitional, it's happening of no code and low code systems. You can somehow emulate your old big legacy system, seeing if these features are needed or not, how it works. You can describe contracts from external systems. Then these tools give you to scene again of these systems, and it's pretty good. Also observability, which is very common right now. You can do that for legacy, and you can start thinking what it really does, how it really works. Then it gives you big improvement to know what this system do and how it works.
Do you have any particular recommendations on observability tools?
I will don't recommend any. There is a lot of good software in this category, and you need carefully to choose which will best pass into your problem.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Is there anything else you'd like to share with this group? Something I haven't asked?
Okay, I will say that one thing is you need to think about company as whole organism than whole big system. because it's like with these databases that other systems are connected with. You can, if you will love this main view of whole system, you can don't know that something is talking with something different. This is also idea of cell-based architecture, that all systems are cells of one organism, and you have one body that is whole software you have. If you will start thinking from this level of architecture, you will start see big picture of your systems. It will easify your work.
Got it. And last question, how can people get hold of you?
Okay. Best method to contact with me, to look what I'm doing, is LinkedIn. And then I have somehow working there as entrepreneur, then then you can reach me there, and I will reach you back.